Welcome everyone on this webinar, which is called the M3 Data Archiving with a subtitle, Starts Now and Benefit Forever. The main purpose of this webinar is get you introduced to the world of the data archiving, not only on M3 on-prem, but also show you how it goes further to the M3 Cloud Edition and how these two worlds can be very much benefiting each other and living in the symbiosis. And before we start, a little bit about myself. My name is Frantisek Slepanek. I'm hosted from Prague, Czech Republic. I'm working for a company called Columbus Global. We are the partner of the Infor, and I will be your host for today. Me personally, I'm heavily technically involved in the M3 world. I'm been working with the M3 for more than 10 years, 7 years on the customer side, 3 years in Columbus, and I'm currently leading the team providing the delivery and service development within the M3 world. And also to provide you a little bit more understanding where I come from, the Columbus Global is a company which is the largest independent Infor M3 partner in the world. We are having more than 300 consultants covering 24/7 operations, being present in the US, Europe, and also in the Asia Pacific, and we are having more than 20 years of experience. And there's a certain reason I'm personally presenting this, because I'm representing the product ownership of the data archiving within the M3 platform. And what I like to always say, I'm the second generation of the data archiving specialist. The M3 goes very much late into the past, more than 20 years. And, in 20 years ago, I'm just trying to understand what is the mathematics, what is the physics. But today, we are here to take all the experiences we got from our previous colleagues and projects and try to show you a little bit more how you can benefit and not starting everything from scratch and trying to reinvent the wheel. And as the title says, archiving starts only once and runs forever. And there's a simple reason to it, because once you start your archiving, it's not only because you feel a specific need or anything, but once you put into the effort and you will realize that just starting is the most difficult part, and then going forward is easier and easier and taking less effort, you also start to see the benefits. And once you start to see the benefit in your system, how it becomes clean, how it becomes faster, and how it became under your control, you will realize you never want to stop. And that's basically what we are trying to give you a little bit more insight today, because I always like to use a parallel about data archiving. Is a little bit the same as cleaning your house. You move into a new house, it's nice and clean and sorted. In time, you grow bigger. Some people clean the house regularly. Some people do the spring garage sales. Some people follows the Marie Kondo rules. Every 2 years doesn't make it happy. Let's throw it out. But sometimes you are doing only the cleanup when you move to your new house. And yes, I'm implying cloud journey from on-prem, of course. But sometimes when you don't throw away anything because you feel, what if I will need it once? What if this specific data will be needed, I don't know, in 20 years to understand our pasts? Well, you're keeping carrying your luggage. And even though you never open again, and based on my experience, trust me, you will not need in your system 20 years old information about the first product, first delivery, first customer name, which by the way doesn't exist anymore, or no longer selling the product, or no longer the price lists is relevant, because it's look a little bit like an almanac from very famous movie Back to the Future, where only the Martin McFly and the old Biff have idea what it means, because they have been living in the ancient times. So that's why I'm saying it's very good to understand where you are going, what data you are taking with you, because it can make your life easier. And it doesn't really is important when you start, but important is that you are looking at this journey. But if we take the jokes aside, it's very often two main questions which I'm getting asked from the customers, and that's when and why. And to be honest, I would like to start with the when. My first response is always, any time is a good time, because sooner or later, everyone will start doing it, including Infor, who, by the way, in October 24, started to automatically run system cleanouts with few routines itself, because it was needed, because the data are just growing. But also to understand sometimes you need to find a very good reason to go through, have a milestone, or just to make a decision. And if you're looking for some good reasons, I have a couple of them. Because you can have, for example, problems with the response time in your on-prem systems, or you can have problems that your system is getting a little bit slower, but you need to improve it, or you need to improve the user experience. Because to be honest, it's not only about the system, it's also about the user, what is the outcome, etc. And sometimes you're doing yearly quality audit of M3. So all of a sudden we go to the discussion, it's not only the data, it's also the quality, which can be connected to the environment refreshes, data migrations, environment splits and changes. And all these small things can lead you into very important questions that maybe it would be a good time to start with the archiving, because it's not only about you save space, it's about you can increase or improve how your system is behaving. You can make the user experience better because they are getting more relevant data and more relevant searches, or because you don't want to take all your luggage. You are going into, for example, Call of Journey, trying to get all new fancy stuff or new system. You don't want to be dealing with problems, errors of data which are 20 years old. And of course, it goes also mainly and not only for the disk utilization, the storage cost reduction, all of these kind of things. And even though these can be the important parts when to start, the importance goes beyond the data, because the data itself just represent what is the vital information you are using. And this vital information needs to be in very good quality. They are impacting the user experience. They are also creating the costs, and they are creating the consumption, but also they are impacting the performance. So if we look on this, and to answer the second question, why the archiving goes beyond this, it's not because it's not only 0 and 1. Well, I very often like to use the consumption and cost topic with an argument to all CFOs. It's very easy to pay more, especially when you're on a cloud, in terms of the storage. Because if you don't pay the attention itself, the cloud is limitless space for the data. Your SaaS provider will not give you a hard time that you want to pay more money and spend more money for the storage for them. They'll be very helpful. But that also means sometimes the archiving is not being priority until something happens. The benefits are not tangible since the day one, but the importance grows in time. The best parallel I'm always using for this is the frog in the warm water. It's very easy to lose track before you realize that your data starts to growing up and your costs started to growing up more than you planned a few years ago. The world changes, data changes, your company is getting bigger, you're having more customers, more products, more sales, you are acquiring new divisions, new companies, you're from day to day migrating the data, your database is growing, and this is sometimes not planned because it's natural. It's natural grow the business and something which you need to take in mind that can potentially impact the data itself. And to give you a little bit better insight for today's topic, I prepared for you two very short customer cases where you can see what the data represents. And to be honest, everybody loves finance data, and everybody knows finance data is super important. All company needs them, etc. And also, I like to use them as the best example. If you look on specific case, there is a customer, 16 years of database, and just look at the finance data, just one archiving routine called GLS 800, just one set of tables. And you may see how these are really changing. The first full year of the company, there's been 2.5 billion records. The last year, 2024, there's been 17 million records. Just look at this big increase. And if we put it into the representation of the graph, you may see that the data are growing faster and faster and faster in time. And just on this specific case, just in the past 5 years, which is just a third of the company history, the data grew up 50% more. And also the difference between year production of the data between 2019 and 2024, the data are growing 25% faster in the last 5 years. And we are just talking about that we are starting 16 years ago when, to be honest, at that time in the middle of the Europe, the people barely know how to use the email, and that they were really basic data. And right now we're in a situation when we are having the AI. We are getting more and more data from the for the customers, for the products. There is more information about how the product is being done, about the sustainability. So by nature, the data will never grow smaller, because that's not how the digital world operates. And the another case which I wanted to show you is that if we are talking specifically about the cloud journey, I did an analysis for one customer who said we are going to cloud and our database is between 2 or 3 terabytes, and we are having expectations that in the next 5 years our data should grow 17%. And just as I show you, you never know how the data can really grow. It's just an estimation based on the history. It's like with the stock market, you can never predict what will happen tomorrow because the business is changing. And just if I will take this very simple example, when you take that the data which are starting first year and finishing the year number 5 are not taken under control, they're just growing every single year 17%. But then we thought about, okay, but what if we try to do something about it even before we go to cloud? And we said, okay, so this is basically a huge part which we can influence. We can say, what if we archive before we go to cloud and we reduce the amount of the data we are taking to the new system? And what if, together with this, we will say, because we are capable of replicating the same process, the same routines which we started today, and also keep them on cloud, it means we can keep the control about data growth every single year. And just this simple exercise give a very good answer that we are able actively influence how the data are behaving in our system. And we can also have one common knowledge, which I believe is a very obvious conclusion: your data will grow, continue exponentially. And it's a very simple reason for it. The data, the world, the business is getting more complex. And if your company is a healthy one, and I believe all your companies are having a target to grow, to have more customers, to have more products, or deliver more services, it means that what you are having today in your system will very likely to change in 5 years. And it definitely will not change in a way which was historically predicted. It will grow bigger and bigger and bigger. So as you have seen the examples with the graphs before, it's not that, okay, so we grew up 50% in the past 5 years, so maybe we can expect the same in the next 5 years. That's not very true, because you are not growing up the same way as you grew up in the past. And that's very important to keep in mind. But what is the next step, and I wanted to give you through, is that there are certain things in detail where I would like to introduce how the data archiving can benefit from, or you can benefit from data archiving, and what you can do as the very first single step to give you the understanding that it's not something like the apple from the tree of wisdom that you need to find, and once you are very lucky, you understand what to do as the next steps. This is the world which is very much known if you are asking the correct questions and the correct people. And I would like to share this knowledge, because in Columbus we are working with the archiving more than 20 years, and there is so much we can share. There is not enough time on the world where we could sit on this webinar and go through it, but I can give you the beginning where you can start looking and see how it goes. And if we are looking on the specific parts which I was talking about, is that there is so much about, if we look on the consumption specifically. There are differences, of course, on on-prem and cloud. And I would like to not very go into detail because the logic is the same. You are using very often the best possible storage, the best possible performance, resources, and everything to keep the production database running, which means that everything in the production database is the most expensive to be run. But there is more. You are having more options how to store the data, because what if you don't need the data on daily basis every single second? What if you need them once a year for reporting, or you need them for auditing perspective? You can have them stored or something cheaper. Can be different server, can be different disk space. For example, if you look on a cloud, there are two storages. There is the AWS for the production database, and there's S3 for data lake. The S3 is much cheaper. And for example, from the cloud perspective, you could see you are having possibilities to move the data from the expensive storage to the cheap storage. And in order to do it, there are two steps. You need to A, archive, and B, move the data to the data lake. As simple as that. And for the on-prem world, it's also about the efficiency of managing the resources, because on the on-prem world, you are having much more. You can really go into the system and just clean the tables, manage your data. So you can also be very much in control of your disk space utilization, how much you need to invest in your system, etc. So the control is the key at this opinion, and it's not limited only on-prem or cloud. It's a universal logic. More space, more data, more performance, more cost, more everything. But there are ways, and we'll get to it. The second point of view I wanted to share today is that the quality of the data also needs to be much higher in the future than of today. Because everybody knows if you're having very high quality input, you can get high quality output. And especially in the time when I know that the AI is a little bit buzzword, but just look at it. If you are feeding the AI or the intelligent-based reporting with quality data, you're getting very much good results. You don't have the manual work involved. You don't have the specific obstacles that you need to remember stuff. And it's basically enhancing the outputs when working with the system. It's helping to retain only the relevant data in the system. And it helps to every single step you do not be the victim of 20 years ago, 10 years ago, there were different people, different point of view. The data are inconsistent, and you can start cleaning them up. Because what is the native part of the archiving is that during the archiving, you need to look at the quality of the data. Because if the data are not in the correct status, they're not in the correct situation, or they're not in the correct context, they're not being archived. So you will see directly the leftovers, or we call them the errors, which you can easily pick up, clean, close them with your business partners. Very often we start archiving the customer orders, and all of a sudden there's hundreds of the customer orders 10 years ago, never delivered in the status 22, nobody knows why, and they are definitely not relevant. And it's really helping, even though you're doing just archiving, to also addressing this kind of stuff, because they will pop out immediately. Because you don't see these errors as you don't see the forest for the trees. Once you start going into deep of this, it's very clear what is the situation, what is the state of the database, are there errors or not, etc. Very important. And the third detail I wanted to share with you is that the user experience and performance goes hand to hand. Maintaining a consistent level of user experience is when you're working with the system correctly. And there's a much difference when you go as a user to the system and start looking for, oh, there was a customer with some number, with some order, I just don't know everything. And you start searching with the keywords, and you're getting results 15 years ago, which are not relevant, but from some reason they're the same numbers or the same customer name. And it's very hard to really know what you're looking for if the sample is too big. But what if you are having in a system only a couple of years, the active one, and you know that it's much easier to be finding the needle in the hay when the hay is just a small part of the straws, and that's it. So it's really helping to maintain this experience. And also, to be honest, it goes hand to hand with the reporting. If the user should make very simple, semi-annual reports, yearly reports, it's very easy to take the data from a smaller sample when you know that you are just trying to filter past couple of years, and also you are trying to filter only the relevant one, because everything which was not delivered, cancelled, for example, not paid, etc., it's not in the system because the quality has been improved. And also it goes to the control of the life cycle of the system as well, because if you are not increasing the storage and the performance of your system only because it's growing, without understanding what the grow means, You can also say, oh, but what if right now we need to increase the storage and we need to increase the CPU, when if we reduce 200 gigabytes of a data, we can do it maybe 1 year later. And that's when you can get also into realization that there could be steps which you do today, and you realize it can very much postpone the very vital investments on the needs you thought you are needing today. And the next very nice thing is that once you start realizing this, it goes every single year. You can be very much in control what's going on. And this is very applicable, especially for cloud. When you're buying the licenses, when you're buying the packages from the Infor, you are buying certain amount of the storage and certain amount of the storage for data lake, and you are being predicted how the storage will grow based on your history. But once you have it under control, you can get in a situation when your license will be still relevant in 4 years instead of three. You will not need to buy more space. You will save space when you are doing the non-production tenant refreshes, because you are not refreshing 20 years of data, which is refreshing the 5 years, which are just super enough for the testing, etc. And at the same time, the data lake is very much used by the customers for replicating the tables, etc. But the storage is not that heavily used as the production. So there is a buffer, and you can use this buffer to your benefits. And this is basically the main four perspectives from my side. It's the cost, it's the quality, it's the experience, and it's the performance. And if we look a little bit how to get started in practice, because right now I try to explain you when to start, why to start, what are the benefits, but a lot of people is asking how to get it into daily life. And there are three main starting points you can be at, and I will try to address all of them. Very much, it's not possible to go into very much detail on on-prem, cloud, how it benefits, but I can give you a little bit of understanding also how they work next to each other. So the first step, you are being on M3 on premise, and you can decide to use what we call Infor standard. Infor standard archiving routines in the North America, very often called TAM or transaction archiving management. And these are basically routines which are available within your M3 system. And with the correct knowledge and with the correct understanding, you can start using them. But what we have done in the past 20 years is that because there is specific needs from specific customers, there needs to be addressed also the custom tables because you are having them, or also because the not every single customer is using the same tables or the same business process in their system. We developed so-called Columbus customer archiving routines. These are based on hundreds of customers asking, can we do a little bit more? Can we add a table? And what we have done is that we try to extend these routines or improve them based on your feedback, the feedback of the customer. Because on-prem, it's very much easy to take the archiving routine, update it, or modify it to add the custom table, which you need to archive as well. And the third point is that M3 Cloud Archiving. And the M3 Cloud Archiving is very much standardized for every single one of you, which means that if you go to cloud, you're already there. There is embedded analyzer since October 23. You can see all the routines, all your data which are eligible for your specific records, and plus the process is continuously updated. Infor is enhancing the archiving routines. They're adding new routines, or they're adding new tables to existing routines. Or, for example, they're also making some of them mandatory because they want customers to save the space on the things they know for sure you will not need more than 3 months ahead. And what is also one of the main reasons I've been invited for this webinar is that uh, in the previous years, what happened is that when the Infor wanted to get the cloud archiving better, they approached the Columbus, and we have been delivering some of the routines which you can see today on the cloud. They are based on the custom development we did with the customers. And this brings one very important information. It doesn't matter where you start the archiving. You can continue with the same process, with the same knowledge, even though it's a slightly different. there is possibility, thanks to the update in October 23, that you can, with minor changes, take the same knowledge you had on-prem and start applying it on a cloud, because the routines are either similar or they are just improved. So it's not that you are, for example, being right now on premise, investing into archiving, and then once you're on a cloud, you will need to invest again. It works vice versa. You will invest on-prem, you will get the benefits immediately once you go to the cloud, and then you take the same knowledge, get the new features, and continue in a journey. So a lot of customers were asking me, okay, but isn't it a waste of a money or a time, or is it better to go and start on-prem or cloud? Or my advice is start anytime, because it's not double cost, it's not double investments. It's just like when you are having your company growing, the importance is that more in the future you plan to do the first archiving, more complex it will happen. There will be more data, more errors to be addressed. There will be more complexity, which means that if you start today, it may be simple, and in the time, it will remain simple because you just taking it bit by bit. But if you start 10 years from now because you think that today is not the best day, you will very much be probably in a situation when it be very complex that you need to all of a sudden do 20 years backlog, and this is not an easy job. And that's the reason, start anytime, and I will show you how. The typical data archiving project plan, how we developed it in Columbus. And this is something I wanted to share with you, that there can be multiple stakeholders, multiple people doing it differently, but this is very much what has been proven in the past 20 years with our colleagues, that it's very transparent, very organized, process-based way how to make the archiving project very easy from your perspective, that you consume all the information, very transparent, that there is nothing hidden, like, okay, so if I hit this button, what happens? You will always know upfront what happens. You will know why it's being done, what is being expected, what are the data which should be archived. And the whole journey is, from my perspective, how I like it the best. I like to know where I'm starting and what is the last point, because hitting the button archive should not be a leap of faith. It should be, I know what's happening, when it's happening, and what I should expect that will see also the users in the system. They're very much part of it. And we are having three main parts. That's the investigation, analysis of the environment. There's the delivery of the archiving and the analysis. And that's the education, the production one. And if you look on these, it's built that from the step 1 to 9, we are trying to build the knowledge, build the confidence, when at the end of the journey, you know what to do and how to do it. And there's one amazing thing which happened in October 23. The Int4 with M3 Cloud launched an big, massive update of the archiving, because they implemented embedded archiving tables analyzer. They included the error logs. They included the new archiving routines. It's being improved with semi-annual feature updates, etc. And once we started to go through it, because it was based on the routines we have been very much familiar with, we realized, well, it was in the past that cloud was one black box where you couldn't run the SQLs, you couldn't really go through the database, etc. But it's not true anymore. You can really go and you can do database analysis, you can decide on what, when, and how, you can set up the correct policies, you can do the cleanup of the data, you can test the archiving progress and the routines, you can get the same documentation, and you can get the same execution, and also set up the regular jobs. And there is one amazing thing: there is a data lake. So basically, on-prem, you have to make a decision where the data will go once I archive them in order to save the storage space. Well, you had your SQL servers, you had your app application servers, anything you want. With cloud, it's pretty much straightforward. There is a data lake. Let's move everything there. Let's have the data there, because it really makes sense. And as you may see, there could be small differences in couple steps, but the logic is the same. We start building the process from the step 1, we provide you with all the information, and then there is a delivery. it's the same. So no matter if you start on-prem and want to continue on cloud, or you start on cloud, the process is the same. And because I promised you to have a little bit of the practical insight, I wanted to show you what are the different and possible deliveries you can see when you go on the analysis. On-prem, you're having very great possibility to address all the obsolete data. You can just go to the system, you can truncate the tables, you can delete all the records and do whatever you want. You have the direct SQL access, you can fix the corrupted data, and you are having the ability to analyze and include the custom tables. But there's a downside. You have to have really complex understanding of how the database works, the connection of the tables to the business processes, the connection of specific tables for the archiving programs, and obtain the relevant output is hard. And I'm always saying to the customers, there are two ways. You either try by yourself. It's a little much of a rabbit hole. Once you start getting the information, you go deeper and deeper and deeper, and you realize that it's not only the data, it's there are subscriptions in the event analytics, there are info enterprise search, which is basically impacted by the table changes. There is so much which is going around that you can easily be in a situation when you start learning by trial and error. And then there is another side. You can go and, for example, ask us, and we can give you a teleportation to the future saying, this is everything we knew is happening. This is the manual. Please start here. And we will try to make it with you with the minimum effort. Because I'm still believing that the biggest power of the M3 community is sharing the knowledge and the information. And this is, I believe, on the second level with the archiving. Because with the archiving, you can do a very much of a good, but if you are having limited confidence about what you're doing, you can really harm your user and your system, and you can get a little bit of a pickle that you are missing some data which should be present. And on contrary, if you look on the cloud version, there's what I said, the embedded analyzer. It's called AMS 050. It's available to all customers on cloud. You can just open the program, you can just go for action, hit generate, voila. You are having an analysis report of available archiving routines, and it gives you the basic, and it's really important to hear, the basic insight into the composition of your data for eligible archiving. It's very easy to be run, though it offers less flexibility than on the on-prem. And what I'm trying to give you is an insight that this is what you can get as a normal person who sees for the first time the archiving. You can see the tables and the sizes. But what we do is, though, we go much further. We are trying to put it, because we understand the tables, the programs, the all the details. We can give you the insight. Okay, so out of your whole M3, these are the data which are okay for archiving. These are the data which you can basically delete. These are the data which you are finance one, and these are the data which you can decide to archive. And it's not only that, we can also give you the indication of the trends. Like if you look on the right side, there's a table with the amount of the records with the finance tables, and you may see they are growing up. And it's a clear indication, not only that your company is doing well and selling more, but also the indication you are growing. And you are growing in a way that the data and the amount 10 years ago is definitely not the same as of today. And this leads me to one of the last slides. It's the summary of what I see as the golden rules of data archiving. Because once you gain the understanding of your data history and put them into the context of your today's need, you will very much understand that it differs. You can be a company who is selling wind turbines. You need to have the information for 10 years because the warranty is 5 years and the audit is 7 years. But also you can be a company who works in dairy, and well, what I heard from customers that we don't really much care about the cheese which is 2 weeks old because it's spoiled anyway. So there is not very much value we can get from the data. And it's very much to put into the context when you are today. And it's also good to put into the context when you try to grow with your business and the company, because if you know where you're today, you can schedule and execute regular archiving runs based on the business model and the data volume. You can identify that some routines can be done with a shorter amount of lifespan, some of them can be longer lifespan, and it can very much reflect what you are doing. So it's not only that there is something which helps you to keep the data under control, you can be the one telling which data are relevant for you. And if you look at this, the situation today can be different in 2 to 3 or 5 or 10 years. But if you also continuously review your data archiving process to reflect your ERP strategy, you may realize, oh, but we are running archiving, but this year we acquired 3 new companies, or we started to use new processes, which means that there are new archiving routines, which can save us even more space in the future. And this is very easy to be done. And it's a part of the continuous improvement or the housekeeping. When there is something changing, you can just very quickly go and also check your archiving strategy. So these are the 3 golden rules. It means understand your data, do it regularly, do it right, and also once upon a time, just get a little bit of a flashback, see what has changed and what has been done. And this is where I wanted to finish today, the short webinar, because I wanted to give you this insight for the practical, how to start and what to do. And right now, because I planned deliberately to have some time, 4th golden rule I'm having, if you are archiving, better ask 2 times, 3 times different persons before you hit the button. It can save you a lot of time, because I believe there is much more coming once we finish.